I'm at the Cobb Antique Mall in Marietta, Georgia, near Atlanta. Come thrift with me. The pieces I wanted to talk to you over here are Fire King, right? And I'm sure you didn't miss it. Anchor Hocking makes Fire King. This is the jadeite color, right? So Martha Stewart made this very, very famous. She brought it back strong in the latter part of the 1980s. So, 40 years ago or so, 30, 40 years ago. And this is, of course, the very famous mug. Almost everybody who collects the Anchor Hocking Fire King vintage mug wants this one. And here is the Fire King mark. And you can see it, you all recognize it. The color is also something very typical. Her mother had these pieces, Martha Stewart's mother had these pieces, growing up in New Jersey, I'm sure, and this is where she brings these back. Recently at her yard sale, Kris Jenner of the Kardashians, of course, Kris Kardashian Jenner, bought all of the jadeite from Martha Stewart's big yard sale. And I want to get to these bowls because these are the swirl mixing bowls, and they too, like the Pyrex examples, come of course concentric. You can put one bowl inside of another, and here's the swirl. And these are made by Anchor Hocking, and they're made for, of course, the Fire King line. Jadeite, this basic nice color of green that went with everything, post-war American. And here's your Fire King, oven-safe Fire King mixing bowl. So the big one, $100. See that mark? They want $100 on that label for the Anchor Hocking Fire King jadeite. They would not be able to command that for any other color. So this really is about the color and the form. And if it wasn't made famous by Martha Stewart, if it wasn't brought back in the 80s, they really wouldn't be able to see this much vintage interest in them. And then, where there's Fire King, there's other, of course, big manufacturers like Fiesta. Fiesta also is made by Homer Laughlin. Now, Homer Laughlin is an American ceramic manufacturer that makes Fiesta. So some people think there's a Fiesta company, sort of like the way they think that there's a Hummel company for Hummel figurines. Hummel figurines are made by Goebel, and Homer Laughlin makes Fiestaware. Remember, Fiestaware had this nice Art Deco style, sort of 1920s, 1930s geometric style for their pieces. And this, of course, has the Fiesta mark. It's upside down, so I want to get it right side up. There's the Fiesta mark. So it's a piece of ceramic. It's a very well-known name. A lot of people collect it. Here are the problems. So I want to see if when we compare this, if the problems are indicated on the price. So you see right here how the green is darker here and lighter here. People say, oh, that's a glaze skip, that's a glaze skip. Glaze skips typically don't happen in these kinds of pieces, okay? So these people who are talking about glaze skips probably don't know what they're talking about. Here you can see it as well. You see how dark it is here, how light it is here. This is because this piece has been out in the sun. So how much is it worth? Well, in good condition, this particular piece is worth about $500. In this condition, they want $695 for it. Why? Because they know a lot of people collect it, and they're thinking, most people will say, I can't find the green, so I want a lot of money for the green, right? And this is also where you see people who are putting numbers up, check their phone and check what the listings are of all these other platforms. Somebody puts it up at $800 thinking, oh, I'm just going to put it sky high. And this person starts to follow the lead thinking, I'm never going to find another one in this condition. This condition is not great. It's worth about $500. In this condition, it's worth less. So a good one in good condition of this, $500. In this condition, it's a $300 piece. So this is where you have to know the market and you have to study the whole market. Yes, it's rare, but rarity is not the only thing. Condition always trumps rarity when it comes to market value. It's funny, I'm standing here, we're taping, and I'm watching the people, and people are coming up and saying hello, and the same way I can tell the age of all these different ceramics and all these different pieces of glass, I can tell the age of people too. Most of the people who are shopping are under 35. That's right. Oh no, young people don't care about antiques, don't want anything vintage. You're all wrong about that. The young people want all the vintage stuff, and they're shopping it up right here with me. The Pyrex pieces, these are kind of interesting because they're colors you don't usually see as often. The mark on the bottom, you'll notice it has all the upper case Pyrex letters. Remember, the marks do change, but these myths about upper letters, lower letters, you have to really know Those particular marks are different throughout different time periods. You have to know which mark you're looking for and whether or not that style of piece relates to that mark. Is it a piece that looks like it's from the 1960s with a 1980s mark? Well, that's what you've got to learn. But what's important about this piece is for the refrigerator. Pyrex was known for oven to table, but the refrigerator was also one of the things that this innovative material was able to do. The refrigerator pieces are a little bit more desirable than the bakeware pieces. I want to point out things like that in terms of condition, and I want to point out scratches on the actual color. So if you got a scratch like this, and also big ones like that, then this particular piece goes from an asking price of $8 to an asking price of $2. This $8 number is for one in very good condition, and this is not in very good condition. Condition is key. Casserole pieces in like a coral color, sort of a dark pink coral. And this one also has a very obvious Pyrex mark, and it has two handles that are part of the whole form. So you take this out of the oven and you can hold it with pot holders, but they give you this actual rim that you can hold on to, as opposed to not giving you that rim, which is a little more inexpensive. In my house, this would be used for the refrigerator more so than for the oven, even though you could put it in the oven. My mother used to make something called icebox cake. Maybe you've heard of it. It's graham crackers and pudding and graham crackers and pudding, and you just basically layer it. And then it goes into the refrigerator, and you know, overnight, all of a sudden you have something that's like a cake, even though you don't bake it. Oh, they want $40 for this, and value on this is just about $45. These are the divided Pyrex dish. So here's the divided Pyrex lid. This has a snowflake pattern on the side. The snowflake pattern is very typical. They did a seasonal kind of patterning at one point. Here's the mark, and you'll notice, again, there's no circle around the Pyrex for this particular mark. This mark dates to the late 20th century, and you can see inside there is the divider inside the actual dish if you look beyond the lid. Notice right here you have on again this element says Pyrex here, and that also tells you, again, match. You want to match it up to make sure you've got the right lid to go with the separated dish. They want $60 for, and that's just about retail. Here is the other one, so it's kind of the other design. It's also snowflakes. They're at about retail. That's about $60 for each one of them. The enamel pieces have a similar look to Pyrex. These are Dansk pieces, and Danish pieces of Scandinavian design, continue with the bright colors of the mid-century modern movement. So this is Dansk, you can see here, made in Denmark. This one, of course, is Dansk design, so it's manufactured in France, but the designs are actually Danish. You can see one of the most evident design elements of this is these handles. These handles where your finger can actually go right inside. This one they want 74. The blue is very desirable. The red is common, and so is the yellow. Here's the red. And this one's large as well. This one they want 85 for, but that's because the blue is more unusual. Here's the nice red mark indicating that the designs, which are made into the 1970s, $85 is about retail. However, the blue one, they're asking $70, but it's worth $85. So remember, color matters. The difference in color matters depending on the manufacturer. The most common ones are white, and enamel bowls in general are typically white. Here's one. And unmarked, probably made in the United States. A little bit of damage around it. They want $35 for this. This is probably worth about $20. I want to talk about this piece of furniture because it's not the typical piece that you always see. Why? Some of it is really late 1800s, some of it is really early 1900s. First of all, it's oak, and oak is the characteristic type of wood that's used in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Notice the curve here, the rolled top cornice, and then we have some architectural details. This is called the egg and dart because it looks like an egg with a little dart in between each egg. Egg and dart you'll see in a lot of buildings of the time period of the late 1800s. This barrister bookshelf has a piece of glass around an oak frame, and it will open and close. This will actually come down and sit right here. This piece is really nice. It's this curved secretary element. You take the key, you open it up, and you have a writing surface that you can write on. The part that's visually stunning of this secretary is, of course, the tiger oak that you see here. It's this nice decoration that you see almost like the back of a tiger's skin, only in wood. At the very, very bottom near the feet, you can see the two casters, and this piece has casters on all 4 feet. They're consistent with the late 1800s. So $450 for it. It's really worth about $650. I left it all there for you at the Cobb Antique Mall.